we look at you as a person. There's so many different roles that you have to fulfill. And with each role comes responsibilities and certain activities that you need to do. Set boundaries when it comes to time. Set boundaries when it comes to what task are you going to take home or not. We often define ourselves by our work. That is how we define ourselves. And we also ascribe our value and our worth to our work.
Welcome to the MAGC Wellness Podcast, your journey to a healthier, happier you. My name is Khaholo Putwani and I will be your host. And today we will be talking everything work-life balance. So today we have Dr. Sharifa Tayoob, and she is an occupational therapist, and she has her doctorate in public health. Sharifa, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today? You look lovely.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So I want us to get right into it. What does a work-life balance mean to you?
Okay. It's difficult. It's easy to define work-life balance, especially if you are a health professional.
Sure.
But it's difficult when you have to define your own work-life balance. So I'll start with the basic Oxford Dictionary definition of work-life balance. And the Oxford Dictionary defines work-life balance as a division of your time and focus on work, family, or leisure life. And there's other definition that goes and says it's the harmony between your professional life, which is your work life, and your personal life, which is the life part when we speak about work-life balance. And it's the interconnectedness of those. Einstein has a very nice quotation, or he says, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balance, you need to keep moving. And I just want to take the opposite and say, to keep moving, you need balance.
Sure.
Because if there's no balance and it's just work, what's going to happen? You're going to fall off your bicycle. You're not going to keep moving. So basically, it's that, even to me, it means that perfect harmony between my work life and between my personal life.
Sure. I actually wanted to bring it back to the hustle culture that we have as young South Africans, right? So in order to be successful, you need to have a hustle mindset. How then does one with that kind of mindset achieve a work-life balance, a healthy work-life balance?
It's very difficult. It's a challenging question because, and that is also one of the misconceptions when it comes to work-life balance. We often define ourselves by our work. That is how we define ourselves. And we also ascribe our value and our worth to our work. So that makes us we want to achieve, we want to grow, we want to get good performance reviews. You want to get that promotion, you want to reach the highest that you know you are capable of reaching. So it can be quite difficult. Do you want me to really speak about the strategies now?
We can speak about the strategies later. And while we're actually speaking about this, I wanted to find out, what does imbalance look like?
So just think about the analogy I gave just now. With imbalance, if you're on the bicycle and you want to keep moving, right? And you're not balanced because you are just leaning towards the work side. You're not going to progress in life. It's going to have an effect on your physical and mental and on your emotional well-being. So yeah, just to summarize, that is how imbalance is going to look like. Basically it will have an overall effect on your health and well-being.
Okay. And I know a lot of young people, again, are really hustling and they're really working hard, right? And I think it's very hard to know that you're not okay once you're in that cycle of working. Okay. A lot of us are on autopilot. We just wake up, we do what we have to do, we go to work, we achieve all our roles, and we sleep at night. Okay. So how can you identify that there's an imbalance or that it's getting unhealthy for you, whether it's leaning more into the work side or more into your general life side?
like you said, sometimes it can be difficult to identify when it comes to yourself, and it's easier to identify when it comes to other people. In such a case, if you're not immediately identifying it because of insight or whatever problems, the people around you are going to know. Because it's those closest to you that's also going to suffer this effect if there isn't going to be work-life balance. Right? But your body is also going to tell you. Because we know that when it comes to work-life balance, it has an effect on your mental health. Okay, it makes you more susceptible to depression and anxiety. It has an effect on your sleep because if we look at stress does influence your sleep. It's going to have an effect on your motivation, even your physical health. You might be someone that is generally very healthy and all of a sudden you're getting infections or you're getting flu or whatever. Often it's because when you are so stressed, and with chronic stress, it decreases your immune system, and then you are more susceptible to all of this. So something is going to show you, and you might not recognize it in the beginning, but as time goes on, it's going to have more effects on you. Yeah.
Okay. And for those that don't know, Sharifa and I had a bit of a conversation before we actually sat down for the podcast. I want to actually talk about Sharifa's age. There's a reason why I'm asking this, and I want her to tell us about how she maintains her work-life balance. So Sharifa, how old are you?
I turned 40 exactly 2 weeks ago on the 13th of July. Sure. Yes, I'm 40 years old. And sure. I'm proud to say my age.
Listen, I'm proud to say your age. You do not look a day above 30. And I would imagine it has to do with being able to balance your work life and your life, right? So tell us about all the roles that you play. We mentioned a few of the things that you do, but there's a bigger part to you. So just tell us a little bit about all the roles that you play in your work life, all the roles that you play in your life, and how you bring the two roles together, because you're clearly doing something, right? You look very healthy and very stunning. So,
and I'm glad you're bringing up roles, because if we look at you as a person, there's so many different roles that you have to fulfill. And with each role comes responsibilities and certain activities that you need to do. If we look at my professional role that I have to fulfill, I'm a university lecturer.
Yeah.
So it's all of the tasks that goes with it, but it's not just going in front of a lecture hall and lecturing. There's so much more that goes into that. Because I'm an occupational therapy lecturer and I lecture in the field of mental health, I also go to the facilities, to the hospitals to supervise students there. But let's go now to my personal life. My most important role, the one that is right on top, would be my role as a mom. So I have a 15-year-old son.
Sure.
That's my most important role. But I'm also a daughter. I have the two most amazing parents. I'm also a sister. I come from a very close-knit family, so we are quite close. I also have friends. I used to do karate up until last 2 years ago. I went up until brown belt, so I need to grade for black belt. But I stopped it because unfortunately my dad had a back injury. We were doing it together. So every time we would grade together. And after his back injury, I said, I'm not going back until you're fine to go back.
Wow. Yeah.
But apart from that, just for myself, I wouldn't say it really goes with my roles, but I think also what helps me to not look like I'm 40 years old is I love hiking. I absolutely love hiking. And I also run. I would love to run every day. Sometimes it's not possible because I have extra work to do when I come home. But in a week, at least 3-4 times a week, I try to do a 5 kilometer.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I also have a role as a granddaughter. So I'm still lucky enough to have both of my grandmothers that is still alive. Yeah.
Sure. And while we're talking about all the roles that you play at work and all the roles that you play in your personal life, but for other people, like you said, you're a mom, you're a sister, you're a daughter, you're a friend, you're a granddaughter. What do you do for yourself? You know, you mentioned running, you mentioned hiking, you mentioned doing karate with your dad, but how do you maintain, because self-care is very important. We cannot shy away from self-care. And I know a lot of people think self-care is bubble baths, going shopping, but that's not the full picture of what self-care is, right? So what do you do to maintain your work-life balance? But in terms of yourself, how do you give back to yourself? How do you love on yourself? And how do you take care of yourself?
This is something I will admit. Honestly, it's something I need to still work on a lot. Like the running, fine, it is for myself, and the hiking, it's something can do alone. And I just absolutely love doing it. I'm not someone who goes to the salon and get my nails done and my hair done. And I would love to, but sometimes my eyelashes, I get it done. Also very important to me is a nice long bubble bath. No, it doesn't matter how
Yes.
much of work I have. And even if I'm feeling so stressed and I have this whole pile of work, when I'm just there in the bubble bath, my mind relaxes and then I start getting in all of these ideas. But when it comes to my self-care, there are things that I can do differently. There are more things that I can do. I started by writing out a list. I still need to go back to my list and come up with a plan as to how am I going to do all of this that I want to do for myself.
Yeah. It's incredibly important. I think, and I love the fact that you're able to admit that it's not something that you have completely gone into, but it's something that you have planned for yourself, that you have a list. And it's so important to actually have a list, because when you check off those little tiny items on the list, it is so satisfying. It is so fulfilling. So I am actually going to join you on that. I'm going to have a mini list for myself as well, because as moms, as professionals, we really forget to take care of ourselves, and it's so important in order for us to still be okay, you know. And I wanted to actually touch on boundaries. Okay, so a lot of us feel very guilty for taking care of ourselves. We feel very guilty for doing things for ourselves in order to keep up our mental health, in order to maintain the work-life balance. Okay, so how can we, let me ask the first part first. How can we maintain boundaries or establish boundaries in terms of our work-life balance? And the second part is, how do we then not feel guilty for that?
Okay, firstly, when it comes to the boundary part, it can be very difficult. Especially if you are in the helping profession.
Yes.
You give and you give and you give so much of yourself. And we in the helping profession, we have this innate characteristics where we are caring and we are loving and we are so concerned and we are so empathetic and we just give and give. And oftentimes we neglect ourselves.
We do.
Right. But for you to give your best to your patient or whoever you are seeing, you need to be at your best. So with the boundary part, to maintain a good work-life balance, that is actually top of my list, is boundaries. Okay? And it's very easy to say. You can also write down your own boundaries, but then it becomes a bit difficult to implement.
It does.
Right. If we just look at the work-life part, you can set boundaries. Can start with setting your work hours. What are your work hours? And you stick to them. So if your work hours, for example, myself, I'm at the office usually by 6:15 and I leave at a certain time. It's only if something is really urgent that when I go home that I will do that. But I try to stick to the work hours that I set for myself. When it comes to boundaries also, you need to say, okay, what are you going to allow and what are you not going to allow? For example, answering emails after hours. Nowadays with technology, it's like we must be accessible all the time and we must be responsive all the time. Even if an email comes in at 11 o'clock, you feel obligated, no, I must now go and respond to this email. So there you also need to set boundaries. Right? With setting boundaries, prioritizing would also fall within there, because you can make a list of all the things that you need to get done in order of priority, maybe the most important ones on top. You can choose the 3 most important ones, and then you do them. Once you're done, you tick it off your list, you go to the next 3. If you don't finish, but then it would mean it's not those that's on the top of priority, you put it for tomorrow. There's always tomorrow.
Sure, and it's so important to know what's a priority and what's urgent.
Yes.
Okay, so what is important and what is urgent? Because I think we're in such a microwave generation that everything is urgent and everything is important, and that's just simply not true.
Not, because what is urgent is not always important. What is important is not always urgent.
So being able to sit and identify the two, because the things that you can do at a later stage, leave them for later. If they're not important or urgent, they should not live rent-free in your mind.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I just wanted to find out then, how do you keep from feeling guilty for establishing boundaries?
Can I just say another, just one more important thing about the boundaries
Yes,
is to
please.
learn to say no. And that is being assertive.
Yeah.
It can be difficult because sometimes you say no, but then you're still feeling guilty. Or you say yes to something that you know you don't really have time for. There's more important things you need to do. And then you find yourself saying yes. And when you're saying yes to something that you don't want to do, you say no to something that you actually do want to do.
Yes.
And that will flow into the question about, putting in boundaries without feeling guilty. You need to value yourself.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like you are valuing your work and you are valuing your child and your parents and everybody else, you need to value yourself because you are just as important.
Sure.
And once you value yourself, it's much more easier to put in these boundaries and you don't have to feel guilty. I mean, you are the most important to yourself.
You are.
So do it without feeling guilty. I mean, you are not hurting somebody, let me say. You are not crossing the lines by doing that. So love yourself, value yourself.
That is such a drop mic moment. We could wrap this up right now, because that is so important. That is so beautiful. Knowing that you are also important, knowing that you should value yourself first, because your relationship with yourself sets precedence for all your other relationships. And you know what? Sometimes you do feel guilty. You do feel guilty. You do feel a little bit bad. But keep practicing those boundaries, and I promise you that feeling of guilt will go away. Practice makes perfect. Practice makes permanent. Keep practicing those boundaries, and before you know it, you'll say no. It'll be a full sentence, and you won't feel guilty about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just know you are doing it to achieve an optimal state of well-being. Right. So how can you feel guilty about that? We all want to be happy in life.
Yes.
Right. You can't feel guilty about wanting to be
can't.
happy in life.
Sure, I love that so much. I love that so much. You cannot feel guilty for prioritizing yourself. That's silly.
No.
That's silly, actually.
Yeah.
Because when you are at your best, you're able to give your best. So you prioritizing you first actually serves everyone else. Because when you're not at your best, you can't give them your best. So is it really helping anyone?
I like how you say when you're at your best, you give your best. When you're at your best, you give your best to work. You are
Yes.
more productive.
Yes.
When you're at your best, you give your best to yourself. When you're at your best, you give your best to your friends, to your family.
Sure.
So I like how you put it.
Yeah, no, because it's
When you're at your best, you give your best.
It's a reality that we're living in. And while we're still on the work-life balance, I just want you to just touch on a few things that might be a challenge for people that want to establish a work-life balance. What are some of the challenges they can come across?
Firstly, we did touch on it a bit. One of the challenges is that where you define yourself by your work. You are not defined by your work. You shouldn't base your self-esteem on your work. You feel good about yourself. You know your value. You know what you are good at. You also know your weaknesses, but you can overcome them based on how good you are doing at work. And when you are not doing good at work, you feel like you are so useless. Like you don't have no value. Right? We are defined by so much more than our work. We are defined by our values. We are defined by our beliefs. We are defined by our dreams, by our goals and our aspirations, not by our work. Okay. That could be one of a misconception. The other one we also did mention is the career aspiration and wanting to do good, which is good, but it shouldn't cause work-life imbalance to a point where now it's affecting your well-being. Another misconception is one size fits all.
True.
So your work-life balance is not the same for me. And I can't see a patient and say, oh, okay, you are a teacher and you are a mom and you are married and whatever. I'm prescribing this work-life balance to you. That is individualized, right? Because no two people are the same.
100%.
When it comes to our priorities, we all prioritize things differently. So no two people are the same. Another misconception is, if you think about work-life balance, it must be equal. So if you put 10 hours in work, you must put 10 hours in balance. Or however so many, it must be equal. That is also a misconception. Again, that is dependent on how you prioritize what it is that you need to get done. And then what are some other more misconceptions? If you achieve a state of work-life balance, that it's permanent.
Sure.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's something that you need to constantly do. You need to put in effort to constantly work at it.
Sure, that last one. That last one spoke to me. Because we tend to think, once I get it right once, that's all I have to do. But it's something that you continuously need to work on. Okay. So a question that came into my mind as you were talking about, we shouldn't see ourselves in terms of what we do. We shouldn't look at the value of our being in relation to the value of what we do in life, right? In social circles, right? If you go out with your friends or if you walk into a room, any room, the first thing or one of the first things you get asked is, so what do you do? Right? So it's everywhere. How then do I not value myself in terms of what I do when society values me in terms of what I do?
And it goes with the same thing with my bio. Everything there in my bio is about work and my studies. There's nothing there about me, who I am as a human being or who I am I as a person. And often when people are speaking, when you meet someone for the first time, when they say, tell me about yourself, you'll start by, oh, my name, I'm Sharifa, whatever. I'm an occupational therapist. I work at so place. Everything else that's important doesn't come out immediately. So yes, it is important, and it also, a lot of people, which I don't like, would ascribe status, and they will class you based on what it is that you do. Right? We need to understand that it's just how people are. Your title and what it is that you do, that doesn't really hold. That doesn't hold much value. People will remember you as the type of person you were.
Yes.
Being kind, being loving, not having a PhD, for example.
Sure. And I think if anyone is going to take anything away from this episode is you are not valued by what you do.
No.
But you're valued by who you are.
Exactly.
Apart from everything else that you could gain from this world, you are important simply because you are. Right? I love that. I love that so much. And in light of us being better at maintaining our work-life balance, would you please give us some strategies that we could put in place to either establish, because I think a lot of us really don't have a work-life balance. We either work too much or we don't really work at all, you know? So how do we then establish a work-life balance and then maintain it?
Firstly, you need to sit down and reflect on your own work-life balance, because you might not even be aware of it. So you sit down and reflect. And then just some strategies would be the one that we spoke about, boundaries. Set boundaries when it comes to time. Set boundaries when it comes to what tasks are you going to take home or not. Set boundaries when it comes to responding, being responsive to emails and stuff after hours. Something else you can do is to prioritize, and you can just take a notebook for yourself and have a separate one for your for personal and for your work. And in that notebook, every day you write down the date, maybe in the corner of the page, and you write down everything that you need to do in order of priority. And then you choose the most important ones, as I've mentioned earlier, the 3 most important ones, do them, tick them off, move to the next 3 ones, tick them off. Whatever you didn't finish, put them for the next day that you are going to do. And you can do the same for your personal life as well. Okay. Practice stress management techniques.
Yes. We all need to do
Relaxation
that.
therapy, meditation, yoga.
Yeah.
When I run, I promise you all of my stress is going back to hell, back to where it came from. Because I feel so good when I run.
Yeah.
Exercise is so important. When you exercise, your body is taking in more oxygen, it goes to your brain, it makes your brain to release more endorphins, you feel happier, you feel more energetic. But exercise is even not just the mental health benefits, but physical benefits as well. So make sure that you exercise. Also practice mindfulness.
Yes.
So with mindfulness, in simple terms, it's being in the here and now. Right? There are so many resources when you go online with mindfulness exercises, and it's free, so it's very accessible. But can I just say a very simple, quick mindfulness activity
please.
you can do?
Please.
So you can just sit on a chair, make sure that your feet are on the ground, you feel grounded, you know where you are, okay? And just relax.
Okay.
Don't make your body stiff or whatever. You can put your hands, it doesn't matter anyway, but it must be balanced. You close your eyes. You take a deep breath in and out. And as you're breathing in and out, just focus on your breathing. So when you're breathing in, focus on yourself breathing in. When you're breathing out, focus on yourself breathing out. Okay. So I'm not going to waste any time now, but you do that for a couple of, like even for a minute, it's good enough, right? And then you, as you are now coming out of it, you just gradually open your eyes. If we're speaking still about strategies, at the workplace, sometimes we get so busy that we don't take a tea break. We don't take a lunch break. We work throughout our lunch breaks. There's a reason why that break is there. So make use of it. Don't skip that break. And then sometimes as you're eating now, you're busy eating and you're still working on your laptop, that is not taking a break. Just disengage for half an hour. So when it's your break, you'll get back to your work afterwards. Yeah. It's a very quick recharge.
It is.
That break is a very, very quick recharge.
And I think we think it's admirable to work through our lunch breaks, to get to work earlier than we should, to leave later than we should, because you're told, oh, you're so dedicated. Oh, you're so good. You're so committed. Everyone be like this person. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And then it goes with some organizations have that culture. If they see you doing that, you're going to get recognized and you might also get rewarded for doing that.
Sure, and that's scary. That's actually scary. And so you mentioned a few things that involve other people, like obviously setting boundaries, having like a time frame where you work, having a time frame where you'll actually be, you know, playing your other roles. How do we then communicate that to other people? Because remember, boundaries are only boundaries once they're actually communicated and once they are maintained. So how do we communicate that? And you know, we have different types of personalities. We have introverts, extroverts. How do we then tell people what our boundaries are?
You need to be assertive. Even if you are an introvert, you need to be assertive. You need to make your needs and your wants known.
Yeah.
So if you, for example, you said, or somebody says, can you please just read over this or edit this for me once when you go home? And you are so tired, you had such a long day at work, you just want to go home and relax, you want to go for your run and you want to spend time with your family. It doesn't matter, even if you are an introvert, you just can very politely, not in a rude way, just very politely say no. You don't even need to give an excuse why. If you can't do it at that time, you can say, okay, not today, but I'll have a look at it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much of an introvert you are. Because if you're going to say yes to that, you're going to have resentment. No, because it's something you don't want to do. You want to go.
That is so
and
true.
You just want to relax.
Yeah.
And do something that you want to do. And now the time with your family is going to suffer. The time that you wanted to do things for your leisure is going to suffer. So you are going to have that resentment.
Sure. So I actually want to ask you this because I know I struggled with it for a very long time, only now getting the hang of it, where saying no when it comes to, say, work things, that's quite easy. My working times are A to B. That's fine. The problem is establishing boundaries with myself when it comes to other people, showing up for other people, right? And I know a lot of people struggle with this too because you feel bad. They understand if you go, listen, can we talk tomorrow? They'll go, cool, no problem. But you feel bad because you're a giver or you're people pleaser, or whatever it is. Okay, how do you then establish boundaries with yourself? Because other people might be quite easy, but with yourself in order to maintain a good work-life balance.
It goes back to valuing yourself.
Yes.
Right? And also know that if you are overstepping on those boundaries, you need to be aware of what is the effects on you. If you keep saying yes to everybody, fine, everybody else is happy. But even if you say no, like you said, they would understand. It's your family, they could understand. But then you need to see, okay, I keep saying yes when I want to say no. How is it affecting me?
Sure.
What effect does it have on me?
How is it affecting me? How is it making me feel? So checking in with yourself is very important.
And what is the stake? What is the compromise that I am making here?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a tough one though. What is at stake?
Yeah.
What am I compromising? And usually it's yourself if you give in to other people and you don't have capacity.
And it's difficult to say no. Like sometimes if I must say no to my son, I even feel something familiar in my tummy. I feel a little bit anxious by doing it. So it's not always that easy. But the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.
The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. Yeah. It does actually. It goes back to practice makes perfect and permanent.
And if you can't, what do they say? If you can't make it, fake it or something.
If you what? What are they saying?
Exactly. But somewhere along those lines.
Oh, it's gonna bother me. Fake it till you make it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, no. And it goes for everything, hey? Fake your work-life balance till you make it. Fake boundaries till you make it. Fake everything, really. Yeah. Till you make it. Practice until you get it right.
And if you are struggling, I mean, there's so many resources. There's so many professionals that deal with it. So go and get help. Go and get support. Even like the life coaches, that is something I assume they can help you with.
Yes. And my thing is though, there isn't enough conversations being had about a work-life balance. Like I said, hustle culture is very, very promoted. Not resting. You're even told while you're sleeping, we are working, we're making money. And you're like, well, I can't sleep. What? Can I rest? You know? But that's what's being promoted by everyone. You know, so how do you then reach out for help? Because if you say, yo, guys, I'm struggling, I need help. You're either lazy, you don't want to work, you're not ambitious enough. You know what I mean? There's so much stigma around needing help or even needing rest or even needing time to yourself or your family because you're told your family's not going anywhere, but opportunities might not always be there because hustle is all the world is talking about.
There's so much of stigma that is attached to that. But then again, we must remember stigma stems from ignorance. And the only way to address that ignorance would be through education.
Yes.
Through educating people.
Sure.
And again, if people are saying that if you need to go and get help, and people have their own opinions, they have their own perceptions. So leave them to have their own opinions and perceptions, but they think of you is not going to make any impact or difference on your life unless if you allow it to.
Sure. Unless you give it permission to.
Yes, unless you give it permission to.
Because unless you give permission, it really can't get to you. Ooh, I love that. While we're still here, we're going to head over to our wellness Ace, and he's going to ask us some frequently asked questions about our topic.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We have like a list of questions here. Some of the questions are also from my friends. No? So like I see that like you mentioning boundaries. So like with the boundaries, there's like a lot of questions which lies within the boundary, especially when it comes to work. work, my job description says I'm working 8 hours, right? So like, and then my manager says, you need to get this done. And then it's one of the two things that can happen. It's either I'm going to work an extra hour or two, or it's either I'm going to take work at home, and then that negatively impacts my other aspects of my life. Then I don't know, what advice maybe can you give based on that? Like, how do I now like come to set boundaries to my employer?
Yeah. Just where you are mentioning that of taking work, home working after hours, there is another misconception that I forgot to mention when it comes to work-life balance, because it's a misconception thinking work-life balance means you are never going to work extra time or you're never going to work the extra hours. There are instances where you just have to. Yeah. And that is going to go with your priorities. If something is so urgent and it needs to be done now, and you need to take it home and you need to work on it when you are at home because there is so much at stake, then it's something that you just have to do. Right? But if it's happening every single day, I mean, something can be so urgent every single day that you must take it home. Then you're noticing here there's a pattern and maybe you are taking advantage of, because you are the one that is always saying yes, yes, yes. So in that, I would say, in that case, open communication. And you also need to assert yourself. And you need to come up with your manager or whoever is giving you this mountain of work to do when you get home after working hours and say, it's not working for me. How else? Is there any other strategies that we could use or put in place to make sure that this work gets done and it's not happening often?
Yeah, because then it's really sort of like a concerning question, especially it revolves around like different like people in different like departments. Because then you'll find a teacher who will be like, during like my tea breaks, during my free periods, I have those conversations with my colleagues, and that's addressing the social aspect of my life. I mean, that's important. And then I still have some marking to do, and then I'm gonna take that at home. And when I get home, I have kids waiting for me there. I still need to take care of my kids and stuff. So like, I think it's one of the other challenges that's there. I've engaged with some people. They've like saying we're having a challenge with that. And then again, there's also people in the mining sector also who would be saying we are and actually facing the same challenge in terms of the work hours, because now we are expected to work the normal hours, and then there's what we call standbys, whereby whenever they call me, I'm with my family having dinner, and then like, we need you right now. You understand? And then other employees, it's something I think that also needs to be, people need to be aware of. I mean, especially like employers, to just understand this topic, because then it's really like an important topic that we're talking about right now, because when it comes to this, it really affects people in a negative way. Then people get admitted to hospitals for such things, you understand? So it really is like a big challenge.
And sometimes people are pushed into this corner where you feel like you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So in occupational therapy, we speak about occupational justice concepts. And one of those concepts is occupational alienation. Basically, what it means is, if you are given something to do and you feel estranged from what you're doing because it's not in line with your interests, it's not in line with your values, it's not in line with your beliefs, but you feel like you are forced to do that. You don't have a choice, you must do it. If you don't do it, they will just replace you with someone else.
Absolutely.
And that leads to work or to job dissatisfaction. But remember, with your job, you have a job description. Right? So you know what it is you're supposed to be doing. They shouldn't be giving you things that falls outside your job description. But employers are governed by policies as well. Right? And if they are not abiding by their policies, then there is to be implications for that. But sometimes you do feel like you are being bullied and you feel like there's nothing that you can do. But then you need to communicate, right? And you need to speak to employers.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't do it yourself and somebody else needs to advocate for you.
Where do I get this help from? Who do I approach with it when I'm having challenges around the employer? when an employer has to, when I'm encountering bullying, for instance, I'm what can I say? I'm a teacher. Now I'm expected to do cleaning because my principal wants the office to be cleaned, you understand? So that's like outside my job description.
Yeah.
And then who do I approach when I'm having a difficult employer?
I'm not an expert now when it comes to laws and regulations, but in that instance, I will encourage the person to first start with the principal, to put it on the table and start with the principal. And if they still not getting anywhere with it, to take it further. I don't know what would be the next step in that instance. Maybe to take it up to the union. But you can also go and seek support, right, from different avenues. Yeah, like I said, I'm not an expert when it comes to labor law and all of this, but there's options. And if you're not aware of your options, go and ask.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's helpful for the viewers as well, so that like they know where to get help. And then when it comes to also the health, you said that like we can also always like also reach out to the health professionals as well.
Yes.
Because then ultimately it leads to stress.
Exactly, and prolonged stress
Burnout.
can lead to burnout. And burnout is something that is quite severe. It's not like your everyday stress. Burnout is quite severe.
Yeah. I think I have those few questions from that. I think basically you guys addressed most of the questions. I mean, you guys like summarized everything from the viewers' questions that I had. But then I think the most concerning ones were the ones that I mentioned, whereby we need to now, how do I set the boundaries with my employer? I think it was the one that was like, that stood out.
Just from an occupational therapist perspective, can I be a little bit biased?
Yeah.
And say that you can also go and seek the help of an occupational therapist, because an occupational therapist is in a very good position to assist you with getting that work-life balance. Right? So as an occupational therapist, we will do a comprehensive assessment or evaluation, where we assess your roles and your responsibilities, and physically and cognitively and emotionally and blah, blah, blah. And then from there, we can address the problems. Right? An occupational therapist can also intervene when it comes to economics. And economics will be, in very basic terms, the workplace must suit the worker and not the other way around. So they can help to get that right also. Yeah. Oftentimes it's you have the workplace and now you as the worker must suit.
That's what interviews
the
do.
workplace.
That's what interviews do. They actually go, are you suited for our environment? Not the
Yeah.
other way around.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, an occupational therapist can also help within the workplace with strategies to make it a bit easier for you to do your work or your task, or to come up with ways to adapt the task so that it's a bit easier for you to do. As OTs, we can also help with the stress management part and teaching you certain skills like problem solving skills, decision making skills, time management skills that is so important when we do speak about the work-life balance. We can also help you to establish a healthy routine, and also establishing that social support, a social network, and how to use the social network.
Okay. So in summary, like for someone who works shifts, I mean like night shifts, and like how do you, what comes maybe to the top of your mind, or what would you advise in terms of like having to balance or having a healthy balance with someone who's actually working shifts? Having to be, especially with nurses, I know with nurses they're working 7 to 7 day, sometimes it's night, and then there's other aspects of their lives whereby they also need to address there on those hours. So like, how do you now strike a balance where you know that you're only available at night for the next 7 days?
Yeah, when it comes to working shifts, I'm so glad that I don't, because it's up to those people who I don't know how they do it. They are my heroes. It's something that seems that it's very difficult to do. So the advice that I would give there is, again, to make a list of everything that you need to do and that you want to do. Right? And this is now when it comes to work, and when you get home from work, what is it? You need to take care of yourself. So it's that personal managed aspect. Maybe you also need to cook and take care of the family. Maybe you want to socialize. Maybe there's some leisure activities that you want to partake in. So you can have like a wheel for yourself, and then just see how is it that you want to divide their time. But sometimes you might say, okay, when you're working night shift, you want to spend a little time with your kids. But now when you get home, they are asleep. And when you are awake, they are at work. So in that instance, it might not always be possible. But then see how will you maximize your time the following week when you are not working night shift. But even when you are working night shift, there still needs to be balance. You still need to make time for yourself and to take care of yourself.
I think that's very much helpful. So I think when you walk in, you gave me a task to do. So the task is actually like a wheel, and then the wheel has numbers from 1 to 10. So 1 means like I don't do it. I don't have time for that, and then 10 means that I actually have time for that. So you gave me like a list. This list, you said it's a life wheel, right?
It's a wellness wheel.
It's a wellness wheel.
Because with wellness, if you look at health, how the WHO defines health, it's not just the absence of disease. No, it's a complete state of physical, social, and emotional wellness.
Yeah. So with this wheel, there's quite like things that are here. There's time for family, social, community, profession, and personal and recreation and spiritual. So with spiritual, sure, it's a challenge for me, because then it's that 30-second prayer that I would do when I leave for work. Like, is it enough? When it comes to just this advice on that, and then the finance, I don't want to even go there, because then it's like also like another challenge. When I'm rating it, I'm rating like 2s and this thing. Like, in order for me to balance this, you said I can see an OT.
Yes, you can see an OT, and they will help you to balance it.
Yeah.
So that you can achieve that optimal wellness, overall wellness and happiness.
Yeah, it was quite tricky, but yeah, I see that there's a lot of challenges. Someone that it's something that I can work on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was.
And that's the other thing. Sometimes you might not even be aware of it until you are sitting with us and you're trying to work with on yourself. But when you do go to the OT, they will do a full comprehensive assessment and to see where the problem, and they will help you with strategies to work on whatever the problem is.
So, Sharifa, I know a lot of people are thinking, what is an occupational therapist? And what is their role? You touched on it a bit, but with work-life balance, with mental health, because you guys do play a role. But a lot of people I know confuse you guys with physios, a lot of people, and they just simply don't know what occupational therapists do.
There's a lot of people that will say, oh, you an OT, it's like a physio. And I'm like, no, we're not like a physio. We're not like anybody else. We are unique.
Yes.
Just like a physio is unique, speech therapy and audiology is unique. We all have our unique role to play. But with physio, I don't blame people when they do confuse the two, because we do overlap a bit. But I can sit here the whole day and speak about what is occupational therapy. I've given my students assignments to write pages and pages of explaining what is occupational therapy, but I'm going to say it in one sentence. So occupational therapy is our profession that deals with the promotion of health and well-being through occupations. Now, occupation, to the layperson, you might think occupation is your job.
Yeah.
It's what you do. In forms, and you fill out, it says occupation, then you say teacher or whatever. But when we speak about occupations, we speak about those activities that you do on a daily basis. You brush your teeth, you make food, you eat, you go to work, you run, you do A, B, C. So it's all of those activities. Right? And as occupational therapists, we don't just wait to treat someone who has a problem, who has an impairment. We do promotion, we do maintenance. So if you are in an optimal state of health, we want to maintain it. We do prevention, right? Prevention is better than cure. And then we will also intervene to improve or enhance now if the person presents with a problem. And just another thing on OT is we work with various conditions. So we're with physical, with psychosocial. There's so many areas when it comes to occupational therapy, but mental health is a big area. And that is my focus. That is actually where I lecture in the area of mental health. We want people to function at their optimal,
Yes.
at their optimal best.
On that
Sure.
note, I just have a question. Why are there so many ladies compared to guys in OT? Why are guys not actually doing OT?
I honestly can't answer.
Or maybe
that
they are
question.
there.
I would like to do research to find out the reason why. It probably stems back to the history of occupational therapists, but it is true. Myself being in the academic field, sure, the females outnumber the males. You might even find in a class there's only females. I've taught in a class like that before where there are no males. But I've recently seen more males going into this field. But I'm not really sure. I know in nursing it's also similar. Not that you don't get male nurses, there are, but there's more females than males.
Makes sense.
I don't even know if it goes, but as females, we are maybe more gentle. We are maybe a little bit
More
more
nurturing.
empathetic and more nurturing. I'm not really sure, but I would like to know that myself. Yeah, it'll be a nice topic to research.
All right.
So if anyone is doing their masters or looking into doing their masters, that's a fantastic topic for you. So Sharifa, lastly, from the conversation we had today, if anyone is to take away anything, what would it be for you?
Let me use an analogy if we speak about work-life balance. Think about work as a tennis ball or as a rubber ball. When you throw the rubber ball down, what is going to happen?
Come back up.
It's going to come back up. Right? It might go back higher or it might come back not that high, but it's going to come back up. Right? Now, if you think about your life, about your family, about your friends, about your community, about yourself, think about it as a glass. If you're going to throw a glass down, what is going to happen?
Shatter.
It might shatter, it might just crack, it might just chip. It's going to be very difficult to get it back, if not impossible, to the state that it was in. Okay. And that just shows how important the work-life balance is. Right? You don't want to be an elder person. I hope we all get to that age where you're sitting with regret. I should have spent more time with my family. I should have spent more time doing the things that I love to do. I should have spent more time worrying at work and the long hours at the office and bringing things home.
Sure, that is a powerful analogy.
Yeah.
That is a powerful analogy, and I don't think we should add anything more to that. We just don't want to have regrets moving forward.
No, you don't want to. You know, there's bad news and there's good news. The bad news is we're all going to leave this earth sometime or the other. Right? And when you die one too. You don't wake up every day and then you die every day. But
Hopefully not.
when you are alive, as long as you are breathing, you wake up every day. And every morning, you get to decide how you want to live your life.
Sure.
You get to decide to be happy. You get to decide to be your authentic self.
It all starts with you.
Yeah.
It does. Sure, Sharifa, this was jam-packed. This was so good. This was so good. How do people find you? Where do people find you if they want to talk more about this?
You can email me on my personal email. Should I give it out?
Please.
It's Sherry Musa, so SHERRY M for mother, OOSA @yahoo.com. Or you can also, sorry, why don't you do an Instagram invite?
You follow.
Okay, I'm not a social media person. Okay, sorry. Can I?
Yeah.
I wish we could keep that. You can. I wish we could keep that. So
Maybe you can show, please. Or you can also find me on Instagram. My hashtag is Sherry Musa. SHERRY MOOSA.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your expertise with us, for taking your time to come fill our cups. We really appreciate it. So guys, thank you so much for joining us on our episode today. From myself, Sharifa, and the MAGC Wellness team, it's goodbye.